So you have a history of funding Democratic campaigns. So where do you stand on the Harris-Walz ticket?
I will vote for them. Uh, as time has gone on, uh, and as people started putting the word socialist after the word Democrat, they kind of lost me on that. I'm a capitalist with capital C, and then I believe that we should do the most for the most with the least. That's kind of my politics. The far left is not what I am, and the far right is not what I am, and that's why even before Joe Biden ran, I was registered as a no party affiliation. I just feel like that I'm a man without a party. I'm stuck in the middle.
So is it fair to say that you're now supporting Kamala Harris?
No, it's not fair at all. But look, I believe that the attack on democracy has, through these years, and all these politicians falling in line and denying elections, is the most dangerous thing that's happened to our country in a long, long time. In a lot of elections, you get to choose the person that you want the most. I got to do that with Barack Obama. I got to have Barack Obama at my house as president. I got to do it with Bill Clinton. There are some elections where you make your vote is for the person or persons that really inspire you the most. Then there's some elections where it's which candidate is least objectionable to you. And so I'm not fired up about the ticket, but the attack on democracy is just a no-starter for me. I mean, and the elections, every time you lose, the election's rigged. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, just think about every time a basketball, football team lost a game, they say the referees cheated. And I mean, it's like gaslighting at a level I've never felt before in my life. And then everybody falls in line. They're all saying these elections are rigged, even though in the Trump election to Biden, Republicans picked up House seats and governorships all over the country. It was not rigged, but that's where we are now. It's a very scary time for me. So I'm not enthusiastic about the ticket, only because I didn't agree with no convention. I don't believe that we should be picking people without a vote. And I think it's hypocritical to be talking about, attack on democracy when one person, Joe Biden, got to pick our nominee. But that's what's happened. She looks a lot better than she did. Look, when she ran for president, she had to drop out before Iowa and was polling at 8% in her own state. So was I excited about it? No, because I thought there were better candidates. But now she is the candidate, and that's who I would probably vote for.
All right. So you mentioned that Joe Biden backing her was a FU to all of the people that pushed him out. Can you tell me a little bit about what you mean by that?
Well, Joe Biden did not want to go, okay, obviously. And the people who were pushing him out wanted to see a convention. And Joe Biden, I believe, and it's been reported that I might have been right, I believe that Joe Biden said, listen, if you want me out, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm the one that built this presidency. I'm the one that beat Donald Trump. But if you want to push me out, you're not going to get to have it your way. I'm going to control the pick. I'm going to pick my vice president, and, F you. That's what I believe what happened.
All right. And do you have any plans to contribute to Kamala's campaign?
Well, I've already raised or written $800,000 that I said I don't want any of it back. It's all done. I want her to have it. Because I believe if I had to choose between the two, that I would choose her, because I cannot abide election deniers and the thought about having no democracy. I asked a smart person one time, is when we reject democracy and buy into autocracy, are we still a democracy? And she said no. And it's true. I mean, we're basically voting to get rid of democracy when we're denying the election results, which is what happens in third world countries and just happened down in South America. I never thought it could happen here. I thought we were built too strong for this to happen, but it could. So if I vote, I would probably vote for Harris.
All right. And shifting onto a more statewide lens, property insurance is a big issue here down in Florida. Could you tell me a little bit? You made a few tweets about it. Could you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this current property insurance crisis in Florida?
One day, and keep this tape, one day there's going to be a catastrophic hurricane. When that happens, Florida homeowners are going to find out that their rights have been obliterated by Tom Leak and Ron DeSantis in the special session to fix the homeowners insurance crises. Once upon a time, when they denied your claim, you hired a lawyer. The lawyer didn't take a percentage of the fix to your home. The lawyer, if they prevailed, were paid their fees by the insurance company. Now, the insurance company has no penalty for not paying. They can wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And if they win years later, then the law firm who represented them to win, instead of being paid by the insurance industry as in the past, will have to take a percent of the winnings that would have been used to fix the house. So let's say the damage was $100,000, but the lawyer's fee is $33,000. There's not enough money to fix the house. It hasn't come to be yet because we haven't had the big hurricane yet, but it's coming. And when it comes, and then when they did this fix, this Tom Leak, who, when he came to Tallahassee, he's worth $1 million. He's now worth $16 million. Where does he work? Insurance company. Who owns him? The insurance industry. And when it came time to have an amendment to his bill to decrease rates mandatorily by 6%, he voted no twice. We're going to take all these rights away. We're going to make homeowners more vulnerable. And they're going to lose all this, but their rates are not going to go down. They're going to go up. And anybody listening to this radio show needs to ask yourself the question, did your rates go down in 2024? Hell no. And guess what? But your rights went away. That's the awful thing. The number one asset Floridians have and Americans have is their home. The number one expense every month is a mortgage. It's the American dream, and the American dream is going to be lost in Florida when we're littered with blue tarps and homes that are never repaired because the insurance industry, and when the insurance company holds your money, it's called the float. They get to use the money they should have paid you a year earlier, and that float adds up to billions of dollars just by delaying the settlement, delaying fixing the house. And that's where we are.
All right. And you touched on this a little in your answer, but what do you think is the biggest obstacle for affordable homeowners insurance for Floridians?
Well, the biggest obstacle is if you're going to live on the coast, you got to pay more. I mean, you don't, everything has a price. Looking at water on the ocean, that comes with a price. You can't really bitch too much about having higher rates if you're in a more dangerous area. I mean, I think if you live in Deltona, that's different than living in Daytona because one's inland. But living in Deltona, you got to live in Deltona. You don't get to see the ocean. So there's a balancing act. But the biggest risk is unchecked rate increases with all regulation and penalties taken down. It will happen one day. Look, they fought us tooth and nail before this bad law. I can only imagine what they're going to do now. I'm not even going to take these cases anymore because I can't sit at a closing table and tell my client, all right, we got your house fixed here's the $100,000 for the builders, but I got to take 33,000 to pay my lawyers and to keep my overhead, and you can't fix your house. It's just, and it's going to happen. People just don't understand it yet because it hasn't happened.
And what it would take is a big storm or something like that for people to see it.
Big storm, big storm with devastation. And we know that we live in the eye of it all. We know it's going to happen just because of where we are. We just missed Debbie. Look, there's going to be a lot of damage in that Big Bend area. There's going to be those claims, or that new law is going to be in effect, but it's a much smaller group of people. Usually the people you got to upset is the rich people. When the rich people don't get their mansions fixed, then you get to see what happened. When poor people lose their trailers, nobody gives a damn.
All right. And moving on to another huge issue in Florida, Yes on 3. So I just wanted to start off by asking you, you've been dubbed the pot daddy. So how did that name come about?
Somebody called me pot daddy at a rally when I was out there rallying for it. And I thought, why is Bernie Sanders so popular? And it was like, he's this crazy white man, crazy old white man with, crazy hair. And I'm like, well, pot daddy sounds like a crazy old white man. That's who I'll be. I'll be pot daddy. So I liked it. And when I heard it, I said, draw me up a pot daddy picture. And then somebody drew a picture of me as pot daddy, and I just ran with it.
I love that. So just to zero in on Yes on 3, you've been a huge proponent. And so why is this issue so personal for you?
A lot of reasons. It was personal in the beginning, especially the medical card, because of my brother Tim, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago. He was my inspiration in life. It was very important to him. As I've gotten more into the debate, I realized, there's things I really wasn't focused on, like, incarceration and people's records being ruined. I mean, missing out on med school, law school, the service, promotion for something that's just, I would rather smoke a joint than drink a bottle of tequila, for example. And I don't see the harm at all. I think it's better. I'm a regular user, and look, I used to drink like a fish, but it beat the hell out of my body too over the years. So it started about the medical marijuana from my brother Tim. As it's gone on, I look at it all. I mean, look, right now in America, marijuana was a Schedule I drug. Cocaine was Schedule III. These old men don't know the difference between LSD, heroin, and marijuana. So criminal justice reform, it goes into criminal justice reform. It's a tax generator. Why should cops be out trying to arrest people? And look, the most compelling reason is, if you don't regulate it, it's still going to be sold. You look young enough. I know this. Whenever you were in high school, which was probably last year, the way as young as you look, whatever high school you went to, if you wanted a bag of weed, you could have had it in 5 minutes on your high school campus. You knew exactly who to go to. You knew exactly where the locker was. You knew exactly what the cost is. But in that bag could be all sorts of things like fentanyl and opioids and LSD and illegal chemicals. It's a danger to children. It's a danger to children. It's a danger to young adults. So there's so many reasons. I cannot even think of one good reason. DeSantis says, we're going to have, it's going to stink. Like, what? It's going to stink? I don't smell any marijuana outside the marijuana stores and throughout Florida now, but that will show you how desperate they are. What's your main objection? It's going to stink up Florida. No, Florida already stinks from the dirty politicians who take care of special interests in Tallahassee. That's where the stench is.
All right. And you mentioned a lot of really like personal reasons for yes on three: incarceration, the fact that teens could probably get something that they didn't really expect when they were looking for marijuana. Have you ever had any personal experiences or know anybody who's had any adverse effects from not having recreational marijuana legalized?
Yeah, everybody who's been denied entrance into the armed services, anybody who's been arrested, not necessarily put in jail, but it's on their record. You know, it's a criminal record, and criminal record stays with you forever and ever and ever. And so the whole idea that millions and millions and millions of people have been incarcerated and dreams ruined over smoking a joint, a plant that was put into nature by God for us, and it works. And there's no domestic violence with marijuana. There's a lot of domestic violence with booze. There's no, who's against this? The booze industry, the pharmaceutical industry. This marijuana is an existential threat to their very businesses, to their very survival. So, so many people's lives have been ruined. And by the way, how did all this come to be? There was a movie in the 1940s called Reefer Madness, and a black guy hooked up with a white girl, and the white politicians in DC went, "Holy cow, we got to stop this." That's the genesis of all this. It's steeped in racism, and the people who've been most affected have been poor people and people of color. Johnny Cochran, I was a partner with Johnny Cochran in his law firms before he died, and he used to say all the time, the color of justice in America is green. Rich people get their kids off. Poor people get their kids out of jail later. And it's just unfair on every single level.
All right. And are there any other issues? Florida has been in the news, being called a Project 2025 testing ground for a lot of the policies that DeSantis has enacted. Are there any other issues that you feel need to be put to the limelight that may not be getting attention?
Well, so many. I mean, we now, they're taking books out of schools. They're limiting women's right to choose. It's like, we hate these governments that are run by the Taliban and the Ayatollahs, these religious leaders. We're now wanting our government to be run by religious leaders. It's just a different group of Talibans and Ayatollahs that want to make us, this country was built on religious freedom and the freedom not to believe. The freedom not to believe. And everything that the founders wanted is being dismantled brick by brick.
All right. So looking forward, what's next for John Morgan?
Well, I don't know what's next. I'm getting older and tireder. I'm 68 years old now. I've passed the medical marijuana deal. Then I came back after I learned that, and I raised the minimum wage with the constitutional amendment from $8 to $15. I feel those two things that I did as a private citizen were more impactful for the people of Florida than anything that DeSantis or Scott or Bush did as governor. Those two things alone are more than their governorships, because all their governorships was lining the pockets of the richest special interests. So what I did, I feel good about. I don't feel like there's any big issues that are still out there that I want to see happen. What I'd like to see happen, which is not going to happen, is the meanness and the viciousness in politics. I mean, no wonder people don't get in. I mean, they call it a blood sport for a reason.
So no plans to run or anything like that?
I think about it all the time. I think about it because I believe that there's more people in the middle than in the two political parties. I believe that because here's what I learned. When you take the word Republican and Democrat down, things happen. Like medical marijuana, it passed with 73% of the vote. It could never have passed in the Florida House. Couldn't have been a hearing, but the people wanted it. Then when I passed the minimum wage, 63% of the vote. These are landslide numbers. What it told me that most of us want the same thing. But when you put a D or an R next to the name, you can't get anything accomplished. So I think about all the time, what if someone ran as an independent, governed as an independent, and put people before special interests? What would happen then? So I'm intrigued by it. The professionals that do these polling say that my numbers are good for this, especially since I'm a personal injury lawyer. Personal injury lawyers are not necessarily beloved figures in many circles. We're like down there with the tax collector and the grave diggers. But I'm surprised by my numbers. So I think about, James Carville told me one time, so if you're the governor, you can do a lot of good. Doing a lot of good at the end of my life appeals to me. Campaigning and knocking on doors ain't going to ever happen. If I ran, I would never knock on one door. Number one, I hate it when people knock on my door. But it does intrigue me, the fact that you can do good. And as you get older, you will find yourself thinking about going from success to significance. Because at the end of the day, all that stuff that drove you, the money and this and, fame or whatever, it all becomes nothing as you get closer to the end. You start worrying more about, have I done enough? Do I have regrets? There's a lot of great things I've done. I've built the Morgan & Morgan Hunger Relief Center at Second Harvest in Orlando, and I built a shelter for abused women, and I've given away tens of millions of dollars in charity to things that I believe in. But at the end, you keep thinking, is that enough? God is watching. And I believe that there's more likely than not that God will judge my time on this earth. And, it's like that great runner the other night that won the 100 meters. I mean, he won by 0.005, but you know why? He leaned into the tape and ran through the tape all the way. What John Morgan wants to do is, on my way from success to significance to final judgment, is I want to run as hard as I can. I want to lean into the tape, and I want to go to heaven.
Powerful. And is there anything else you'd like to add that you feel we didn't cover?
Yeah. If you've been injured in an automobile accident, hurt on the job, or the victim of medical malpractice, call Morgan & Morgan, fighting for the people.